It is my privilege to introduce Zen Huneycutt, founder and director of Moms Across America. This is a national coalition of unstoppable moms. Moms Across America has over 400 leaders who have done 600 community events in 46 states, and all of this happened within the first 2 years of inception of Moms Across America, thanks to Zen's leadership. Zen is here to share with us the answer to this serious problem faced by many families across the country. Our children can die from the food they eat. She is here to tell her story about what she did to change her family's life for the better and to share with us how we can all help the children. Please join me in welcoming Zen Huneycutt.
GMOs are engineered to withstand glyphosate. And it's one chemical that you can go to senators or to the EPA and say, ban that. If you go to the EPA and say, ban all toxic chemicals, you're not going to get a very, they're just not going to be interested. In addition, the entire agriculture system is based on this one chemical. If they do ban it, that means their entire agriculture system is going to have to be transformed. And that means all of the toxic chemicals as well. And when they're saying another toxic chemical is going to be even more toxic, it's more toxic because it's combined with glyphosate. The dicamba that they're using and the 2,4-D, it's all a combination with glyphosate. So if they have to ban glyphosate, this whole system goes down. And we can do this. And we always say, by the way, we want to get off the toxic treadmill of chemical cocktails and chemical farming. We never just say we only want to get rid of glyphosate. It's the entire chemical farming system. Our farmers are ingenious. We have faith in our farmers. They don't need GMOs and toxic chemicals. They absolutely can do without it. So we do always mention all of them, but we go for this one because it's the biggest one. And this is an example of the Bt GMO shown here, which explodes the stomach of the bug that eats the corn or soy. And that's a registered pesticide, and that's what is part of our food. Now, this means that GMOs are a chemical delivery system to human. They're increasing the chemicals in rates that we have never seen before. 80% of GMOs are HT, herbicide tolerant, or RR, which stands for Roundup Ready, engineered to withstand Roundup, glyphosate. That's the active chemical ingredient. Please look at our list on Moms Across America under data. There's a list that says the EPA list of allowable levels of glyphosate on our food. They allow 160 foods to have residues of glyphosate on it that far exceed that which causes harm and destroys gut bacteria. And I'll get more into what glyphosate does in just a moment. Keep in mind that in 2013, there was a 73% increase of Roundup use in 1 year alone. Could you imagine if you increased ingesting anything 73% more, even water, that would be harmful for you? We must consider the impact of these toxic chemicals on our environment and our children. They're also spraying glyphosate and 700 different products, by the way, and glyphosate is in 700 different products, sprayed on our backyards, our streets, our food, and our trees. Glyphosate is a patented antibiotic, and it destroys the beneficial gut bacteria and promotes pathogenic gut bacteria. Now, why this is particularly important to understand is because the pathogenic gut bacteria, like fungus or Clostridia, different yeasts and bacteria, on the outer walls they have a thing called lipopolysaccharides. And those lipopolysaccharides signal the vagus nerve to signal the brain, the microglia cells in the brain, to go on attack because they want to get the bad bugs, right, in your gut. So they go on attack, they create glutamate, and glutamate is an excitotoxin which excites the neuron cells, the ends of the neurons, and eventually they can die. So all of a sudden then your child might develop a stammer, a tic, or start banging their head against the refrigerator, or an older person might get Alzheimer's. This is what's happening. Our bodies are attacking ourselves because of the gut bacteria, the destruction of our biome, our microbiome in our gut. Glyphosate is also a chelator. It holds or makes unavailable the vital nutrients of any living thing it touches. This means that it draws out, it makes those unavailable so that you can't fight cancer, or you can't fight bugs or fungus or things like that. It's causing also DNA mutations. Glyphosate is defined on the EPA fact sheet as a reproductive effector. That means affecting the development or harm of a fetus. That's an endocrine disruptor and cause liver and kidney damage. There are many studies that document farm workers that have liver and kidney damage due to glyphosate. So we know now, many of us know, that GMOs are in 85% of America's processed food, and we have the worst health. They're in soybeans, cottonseed oil, canola oil, corn, sugar beets, papaya, Hawaiian papaya, and zucchini and crooked neck squash. And the oils, cottonseed and canola oil, cottonseed and canola oil, people don't normally think about it, but that's your restaurant food oil. Now, why moms, right? Well, historically, moms have determined the longevity of a culture through careful food preparation. Consider that men would protect and have historically protected and provided for us, but we women have been the ones to decide what our tribes eat. Now, if we don't trust our instinct and we fed the tribe poison berries or rotten food, the tribe would perish. We had to be able to trust our instinct. However, for the past 20 years, without GMO labels, moms have not known what is in our food, and the health of our nation has declined. The reality of health in America. Of the top 17 most developed countries, the USA is last in health. Of the top developed countries, the USA is number 1 for infant deaths on the first day of life. 1 out of 2 of our children have a chronic illness. This includes what I just mentioned: autism, allergies, autoimmune issues, diabetes, and obesity. 1 out of 2 American males and 1 out of 3 females are expected to get cancer today. And I say males and females and not just men and women, because many of them are our children. Pesticides are linked to a loss of IQ. American IQ has dropped 7 points since GMOs. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that means instead of 6 million people who are mentally impaired, we have 9 million. And it reverses with the gifted as well. Instead of 6 million, we have 3 million gifted. So we are literally dumbing America. That's what's happening with these toxic chemicals. Now, here's what happens when you feed a pig GMOs. This is drug-free, meaning no hormones, by the way, or antibiotics. So this is just GMO-fed and non-GMO fed. And the GMO-fed one has irritations, inflammation, stomach ulcers, just like children with autism. And the same behavior as well. The pigs are more aggressive and violent, and they bite each other, and they have a harder time learning. This is from one of my favorite Iowa farmers, Howard Vliger, by the way. And I also want to acknowledge Bob Straight is here too, another one of my favorite Iowa farmers. So this is these reports are coming from farmers, doctors, researchers, scientists all around the world, the effects of GMOs and glyphosate. Here's what I call the proposed collateral damage of glyphosate. I may not read it all because it's just very heavy, but as an endocrine disruptor, we're now seeing the result is that we're seeing a 30% failure to conceive rate in America today. That's the highest in recorded history. As an antibiotic, what we're seeing is 24.7 million children with food intolerances. That's leaky gut. There's been a 79% increase in Crohn's disease in children just in the past 10 years. And that's only from the hospital outpatients reports. That's not from doctors' offices. This is staggering. This is a crisis that's going on in America. The gut bacteria, which I mentioned earlier, where it destroys the beneficial gut bacteria, the gut bacteria is the only place where tryptophan, serotonin, and melatonin is made. Without serotonin, you can't regulate insulin. So what's going to happen? Diabetes. Diabetes has quadrupled just in teens in the past 10 years. 29 million Americans have diabetes. 29 million Americans have diabetes, and I have to mention that within 12 years, if we don't get a handle on this, the American U.S. healthcare budget will be bankrupted just by diabetes alone. That's how it's over $279 billion, I believe, just spent on diabetes. 57.7 million Americans have mental disorders, which is also connected to serotonin and melatonin, or the lack thereof. And as a chelator, we have 117 million Americans with cancer today. It's the number 1 or number 2 killer of children. So it's a very serious issue. Now, how is it showing up in my family? Well, my sons, Ben, Bodie, and Bronson, that are 12, 10, and 7 now, all have food allergies. And my husband and I never did. They have allergies to gluten, wheat, dairy, peanuts, tree nuts, eggs, and carrageenan. Not all of them have all of those allergies, but they run the gamut. One of them has an allergy to carrageenan, my oldest one, and that's a seaweed food thickener that's in just about everything that kids like. It's like hot dogs, ice cream, lunch meats, sauces, and he would get a red line around his mouth, which I'll show you later. And, I'll go into this other part first. This is how it showed up in my family. So it's Thanksgiving dinner. My son is 5 years old, my eldest son, and we're sitting in a room with 25 people happy, eating Thanksgiving food, cranberry sauce, stuffing, and I look at my son, and all of a sudden, his eyes just start to glaze over, and he looks very, very sick. And I thought, oh no, he's getting the flu, or he's, got stomach problems. And he says, I need to go, I don't feel good. And I said, okay. So he goes to the back room at Nana's house, and a few minutes later, I hear a loud cry, and my husband and I run to him. And we look at him, and he's covered in welts, his stomach, his neck, his face. He looks like a raspberry puffed up. And I'm so grateful that I remembered the EpiPen. So I ran, and I got the EpiPen. My husband jammed it into his leg, but he couldn't get it out. So I had to pull it out, and blood spurted across the room. And my mother-in-law is screaming, and I'm screaming, and we're realizing that there were pecans in the stuffing. So we have to run him to the hospital, and while he's in the car, his eyes roll back in his head, and I think he's gonna die. We hook him up, they hook him up to steroids, and we're in the hospital, and I'm holding his hand, and he's looking at me, and he's terrified. And his eyes are just begging for me to do something. And all I can do is hold his hand and pray. I feel completely helpless. This is not a feeling that any person should ever have for themselves or their loved ones, that their child could die from food. Now, he didn't die that day, thank God, but he did develop more allergies, and that's the one with the carrageenan, his allergic reaction. It would puff up for 2 weeks at a time. His lips would get flaky and swollen and sore. He would have to go to school like this. And it was very painful and embarrassing, and we just had to avoid food. When he went to his friend's house, he couldn't eat the food there. When he went to Nana's house, when he went to school parties, none of that. So, his life was limited, and we were frustrated. Then we were at breakfast, and, hang on a second. I want to go back. I went a little too fast. Sorry. You have to look at that for a few more seconds. We were at breakfast one day, and he looks up at me. He's got the rash around his mouth, and he's eating his food, and he says to me, Mom, I really wish my allergies would go away. And I say, me too, buddy. And I realize that I'm thinking that's never going to happen. We're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life, And then I also realize that I'm committed to empowering people, to being somebody who's empowered and optimistic. And so I think to myself, what if we really could do something about this? So I turn to my son and I say, Ben, would you be partners with me on this? Would you, drink green drinks or try new supplements or go to different kinds of doctors? Would you help me out on this? And he said, yes. And I said, then I promise you will get better. And that was very scary for me to say because I didn't know how. But we worked on it together, and there's a saying that goes that a worried mother does better research than the FBI. And so I researched, and I found out that there are foreign proteins in our food. I learned from Robin O'Brien, The Unhealthy Truth, and Jeffrey Smith, Genetic Roulette, and I began researching like crazy. And then I got involved in Prop 37. And Prop 37 was when we were labeling GMOs in California, and I'm sitting in the back of the room. It's election night. It was the presidential election night, but I was more concerned about whether or not this labeling would pass. I was sitting in the back of the room, and the volunteer organizer was standing in the front of the room acknowledging everyone. And I started to think about what had my role been in this campaign. And I realized that I had passed flyers out, and that was good. We need helpers. But I also realized that she was in the front of the room, and I was in the back of the room. And I thought, I didn't take on leadership. My actions might have been different if I had taken on leadership. So I thought about that and thought, what if I did take on leadership? I'm the one that's going to transform the food industry. Not me by myself, but not someone else. Me, my actions, right? Then I find out we lost Prop 37, and I'm in the car in the parking lot, and I'm crying. And my son says to me, my eldest son, Ben, says, Mom, even Star Wars took 6 episodes. Yeah, and I said, yeah, and they had Yoda. And so then I realized maybe it's time for a new episode, and maybe this time I'll take on leadership. What could I do to raise as much awareness as possible in the shortest amount of time? And at first I thought of marching in Washington, but then I realized mom strollers, limited budget. So I thought of 4th of July parades. One parade, this is in Washington, one parade, 3 people deep for 3 miles, that's a medium-sized parade, equals 49,000 people. You carry a sign that says something about moms on it, you have another, then combined with GMOs, and people are gonna start wondering, why are these moms marching? What is a GMO? Right? And the guy on the sidewalk with a Coke and Doritos is gonna say, honey, what's a GMO? Mission accomplished, right? So we marched in 172 parades in, I think it was 40-something states the first year. We've marched in every state since then. And people are really having a blast with it. They love doing it. They create floats, all kinds of things, all across the country. So we really invite you to get involved and really have fun with this year in Iowa. So as we're meeting all of these people all across the nation, our Facebook page went from a reach of 0 to 300,000 a week in just the first 4 months. So it's really grown a lot. We've met a lot of amazing women who have shared hundreds and hundreds of testimonials with us. The first one I'll just share is with my son. After 4 months, you can see the rash in his face went from very swollen and lasting 2 weeks to, after going GMO-free for 4 months, to only a very faint pink line and lasting only about 2 days when he was accidentally exposed to carrageenan again. And so I believe, because carrageenan is such a particularly insidious allergy, all allergies cause inflammation in the gut, by the way, but carrageenan is particularly insidious, and it's allowed in organic food as well, by the way, keep in mind. It can cause stomach cancer. So I believe, because my son's gut is able to heal from avoiding the foreign proteins of GMOs and the related pesticides, his gut is healing, so when he is exposed to the allergen, he is stronger for it, and he is able to resist it, and so I believe we are preventing stomach cancer in him. This is Jennifer Lawrenson. She said, I had an awesome team of doctors at the Children's Hospital that could not figure out what was wrong with my daughter, who was getting sick after nearly every meal. The moms posting on Facebook that their children got better when they got off GMOs saved my daughter's life. That day, I went out and bought organic food, and she stopped throwing up. And this is real. You can see her video on our website. Karen from California told us that her son had daily asthma attacks, needed glasses, and was recommended to be held back a year at school. When she found out about GMOs and switched to organic, his asthma disappeared, he no longer needed glasses, and he's now at the top of his class. Cindy from Rhode Island has a severely autistic teenage son. She found out about GMOs 2 years ago and went all organic. And she's a single mom making $40,000, so this wasn't easy, but she did it. And her son entered high school this past fall, and not one of his teachers could tell that he ever had autism. Now, these 2 boys have new futures because their moms found out about GMOs. And I say that our country has a new future because their moms found out about GMOs. Because who knows what these boys will contribute to our society? Think about Google, 2 boys, right? So the fact is that GMOs and glyphosate are not working. We have a food shortage is a lie. Americans waste 40% of our food. 40% of us are obese, and yet 16 million children go to bed hungry every night. It's not the food that needs to be modified, it's the food industry. Thank you. This current system is all for the profit of the chemical companies who both make the chemicals that they spray on the foods and they make the drugs that make us better. I don't know if you know this, but Syngenta makes they're the largest producer of pesticides in the world. And their sister company, AstraZeneca, sells hundreds of pharmaceuticals that treat the exact symptoms that are caused by their chemicals. And Bayer, we know Bayer makes aspirin, they also make pesticides. Monsanto's parent company used to be Pfizer, but why do you think Monsanto wanted to merge with Syngenta? To have a perfect profit circle, right? And DuPont as well, they own a company called Danesco, which is the largest provider of probiotics. You have to ask your probiotic company, like Garden of Eden and Jarrow, the last I knew, they get their probiotics from Danesco. I really believe we can turn this around. Now, in breast milk, This was shocking. So the detectable level was 75 parts per billion. We didn't think that we would find glyphosate in breast milk, but we did, 99, 76, and 166 parts per billion. And this was in the woman that did not know about GMOs or glyphosate. She was the only one. 9 out of 10 were Moms Across America supporters. This was a friend of a Moms Across America supporter. So I would suspect that the majority of women who do not know about GMOs and glyphosate may have levels at that levels, and we will find out because of this testing, a 200-person study has been funded and it is underway. So we, of course, were very upset about this. This level of glyphosate is 3,000 times higher than has been shown to cause harm in Seralini's study. This was sex hormone changes and liver and kidney damage. So we called the EPA. We said, we are not going to stand for this. You need to recall Roundup because the manufacturer said that it would not show up in breast milk. It would pass harmlessly through the urine. And when a product doesn't do what the manufacturer says it's going to do, you recall it. So we did a 5-day call the EPA to recall Roundup. And by the 3rd day, the EPA said, please stop calling us. We've had 10,000 women call. And by the 5th day, they said to me, you have to stop. We have to do our jobs. And I said, your job is to recall Roundup, and we're not going to stop. And they said, well, we'd prefer to meet with principals. So thank you. We prefer to meet with principals, and it just so happened I was going out a week and a half later for another convention, and I said, I can meet with you, and I'll bring some moms. Well, I brought moms, lawyers, doctors, scientists, a former U.S. Marine, and there were 11 of us and 9 of them, and a 1-hour meeting turned into a 2-hour meeting, and they were riveted. They stayed in their seats, and one of the members was actually on the World Health Organization, and they got to hear us talk about all the issues with glyphosate, the cancer causing, our children's health issues, and they agreed to analyze, not then and there, but a few months later, they agreed to analyze glyphosate in breast milk, and they have delayed their decision whether or not to reapprove glyphosate for another 15 years, we believe partially because of this, because they will be announcing their results of what they've found in breast milk when they announce their decision whether or not to reapprove. So we believe that speaking up absolutely can make a difference. Now, since then, a lot more people have been testing for glyphosate in food, GMO Free USA and many other different companies. It's been found in honey, in soy formula, actually in the formula higher than in the breast milk, was 170 parts per billion. Doritos, soy sauce, bread, again, because it's sprayed on wheat. It's been found in Fruit Loops and Kashi cereal. It's also, unfortunately, been found in the feeding tube liquid that is given to children with cancer. Just shocking. Now, this hasn't made more news, I think, because it's just so bad. You know, people don't want to know this. It was over 1,000 times higher than has been shown to destroy gut bacteria. It's also been deemed a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization just a few months ago. So what are we going to do about this? First of all, I want to acknowledge that there are people that are making a difference in this cause that really should be acknowledged, the ones that really should be getting the World Food Prize. And some of them are my favorite farmers, Michael McNeil, not Michael McCain, John Kemp, and Bob Strite is here tonight. These are farmers who are educating people how to grow crops that completely resist pests and weeds without GMOs and toxic chemicals, just through nourishing the microbes in the soil and the minerals and balancing them out. These are the heroes and the future. These are our heroes of the future and of today. Also, some scientists and doctors, Dr. Huber, Anthony Samsel, Stephanie Seneff, they have been the champions for educating the public about glyphosate, and they've really gone out on a limb. I mean, some of them have been attacked, physically attacked and threatened, and they've attributed glyphosate to 40 different modern diseases, and they've been called crazy for it. So they are really courageous and really should be applauded for that. And Andre Carusco, unfortunately, has passed, but he's the one who found out that glyphosate destroys gut bacteria at 0.1 parts per billion. Menardo Avilo Vasquez is a doctor down in Argentina that has connected glyphosate to 9 out of 11 of the birth defects are either by glyphosate or atrazine. down in around the crops that are sprayed with chemicals in Argentina, 9 out of 11. Arpad Pusztai is the one who did the GMO testing on potatoes, was definitely harassed after that. Sarah Leany and the team in France, they're the ones that found out about GMOs and glyphosate. They did the only test on Roundup and saw all the tumors. Judy Carmen and Monica Kruger partnered up with farmers Ib Peterson and Howard Vliger and did the pig studies and discovered that the glyphosate and GMOs impact not only the gut, but the fertility system. And that when pigs were fed glyphosate-sprayed grains at just 2 parts per million, their miscarriages went from 3% up to 33%. That's an exact correlation with the 30% miscarriage rate that we have in America today. Also, activists and educators, Vandana Shiva, she's like the Dalai Lama of our movement. She's amazing, from India. You should look her up. And Jeffrey Smith, Robin O'Brien, Food Babe, Vani Hara has really spread the awareness. Rachel Parent, 16 years old now, she started public speaking when she was 11. She's just amazing. And then I want to acknowledge one mom, Samantha from Kentucky. She marched in the first parade in the rain in a small town in Kentucky. 15 other people did not show up, but she did, with her toddler in a stroller, an umbrella, and her toddler held a sign that said GMOs equals genetically modified organisms in our food. And when she walked down the middle of that parade by herself with that sign, she got jeered, she got laughed at. And I asked her later, why did you do that? Why didn't you just leave? And she said, because I do what I say I'm going to do. Now, what if Monsanto did that? What if we did that? What if we fed our children healthy food? What if we turned around our health in America? What if Iowa became the healthiest state in America? What if you led the way? You lead the way with elections. Why not lead the way with health? What if we could turn this around? So, how are we going to regain health and freedom in America? If we don't buy it, they can't sell it. Buy organic. Moms buy 85% of the food. Everyone either has a mom or is a mom. So we ask you, number one, please tell your moms about GMOs and glyphosate and ask them to buy organic. And we support you with that in our website as well. Now, the first thing people are going to say is, but organic costs too much. And I say, really? Does it? Buying your own 5-pound bag of organic potatoes, cutting them into French fries, and cooking them at home saves a family of 5 over $917 a year compared to buying fries at a fast food place twice a week. And that's just the fries. And don't give me the thing about time either. By the time you drive to the restaurant and wait, get your order taken, and sit down, and you could have cooked this entire meal, right? So you absolutely can save money by eating organic. Now, if you think organic costs too much, consider, soda, $8.89 a gallon. Potato chips, $8.45 a pound. The costs for also to treat these bacterial infections, to treat diabetes, pesticide cleanup, loss of exports, the damage to our children's brains and bodies, it's all incalculable. Now, I realize because 60 million chickens have died, it's no longer $4.99 a pound for chicken. And by the way, those chickens that died were all of them were from factory farmed chickens. They were not from pasture fed organic chickens. So I realize it's more like $6.99 a pound now, but still it's cheaper than buying this junk food. Now, what can you do? I said that you would be empowered to take on your family's health issues and just know what to do about GMOs and glyphosate. So this is what you need to do. Number one, test your water for glyphosate, just so you know. Test your water and, of course, your urine as much as you can with your family members. They cost about $119 a test, but knowing is really important. You go to momsacrossamerica.com, use a reverse osmosis filter or other water filter which has been tested and proven to remove pesticides or glyphosate, or test the water yourself, and add a few drops of trace minerals back into the water to prevent calcium chelating. You need to do, it's just called trace minerals. You can buy it in any health food store or even on Amazon. Test for glyphosate, fungus, and pathogenic gut bacteria, especially if you have a child with health issues or erratic behavior, or if you're feeling brain fog, fatigue, irritability. Just get a urine test for fungus and see what's going on with your body. I won't read all this, but basically fungus and yeast can cause all these problems. Number 3, detox and restore healthy gut bacteria. So you can do this by eating only organic and adding non-GMO vitamins and minerals. Now, make sure that your vitamins and minerals don't just say cellulose in them. That could be GMO corn husks, okay? So this is really challenging because you might need to switch to tinctures and oils like drops of vitamin B or drops of vitamin D rather than the pills, right, with the cellulose in them. So be careful about your supplements. Number 2, treating the fungus, yeast, or bacteria overgrowth. You may need to do that with medicines. We prefer not, but there are ways to do that holistically as well. Colloidal silver, aloe, and there's a new product called Restore out. I highly suggest looking that up. That helps to restore the the integrity of the gut lining. Number 4, eat gluten-free, sugar-free, and dairy-free for the duration of your treatment so as to not feed the pathogenic gut bacteria. And number 5, add in probiotics, preferably in the form of raw organic sauerkraut, kefir, organic kimchi, organic miso, kombucha, or kefir soda water. See culturedfoodlife.com, that's Donna Schwenk's website, for some great recipes. And please set aside the idea that you can't get your kids to eat sauerkraut, because you can. It's gold stars, I don't know, rewards, whatever you need to do. My kids eat it every single night with dinner, and it absolutely is possible. There's 1 trillion good bacteria in 1 tablespoon of sauerkraut. So these are just some great ways to restore your gut bacteria. Now, if you think about it, other cultures all do this. Japanese cultures, they have miso, they have kimchi's Korean, yogurt is in all the Mediterranean foods, sauerkraut, all these other cultures, they have this with every meal. So just bring these probiotic foods back into your diet to protect yourself. Now, that's for yourself. This is an ask to prevent health issues in your communities. You can do things. Now, and why would you do that? Because first of all, it's not enough for my family or your family to eat organic, because our son's future spouses, our children's future spouses are out there somewhere, and they're likely eating GMOs. And we know now that the Seralini study, they showed that the 3rd generation of rats were sterile. Now, I would like my children's future spouses and my children to be able to procreate and to experience the profound love that it is to have one's own child, if they want to. This is something that is about future generations, and what you decide to feed your children or your grandchildren today absolutely can make a difference. The problem is we don't know when that 1 bite of food, and I'm sorry to scare you, but a very small level of glyphosate can be an endocrine disruptor, which can change hormones. And we just don't know when that would be and how that would happen. So it's so important to think about the entire community. And some things you can do are to have maybe a movie night showing, I'll show some movies later that you can show, movie night, or maybe a mom's meetup. And if you think about it, just one person who shares with 15 people, if you have 15 people over, and each one of those 15 people shares with 5 people, who share with 5, that would mean 1,875 people now know about GMOs and glyphosate. If they go out and spend $200 a week on organic food, and $100 of it comes from local organic food, your local farmer's market, that means a $6.5 million injection a year into your local economy, and over $1.8 billion shift to organic food nationwide. Do you think you can do this? Can you tell 15 people about GMOs and glyphosate? Raise your hand if you can tell 15 people. That's awesome. That's millions of people right here, right? So now, why you? Okay, I have to go back. Sorry. So why you? Well, I have to tell a little story about my mom and what she instilled in me. So it's the first day of my son's life at home, my eldest son, Ben, and he's tiny and frail and pink, and he weighs almost nothing. And I'm holding him, and I say, Mom, isn't he amazing? Aren't all babies just amazing? And she looks at me and touches my shoulder and says, we all still are. We all still are. It doesn't slough off. Babies aren't more amazing than you or I. We can do whatever we set our minds to. And if we see ourselves as amazing, we will take on Whatever it is that's important to us, we will stop that pipeline. We will stop war. We will transform the food supply because it is right and it's what needs to be done for the future of not only our children but for the entire country. Now, when Gandhi stood before the parliament, they said to him, "Little man, do you really expect us just to hand India over to you?" And he said, "Yes." He saw his government as an entity that would eventually do the right thing. He saw his government as great, and that made him a great leader. So I invite you tonight to see yourself as amazing and to see your government and anybody that you come in contact with as great. See your mother-in-law, your daughter-in-law, your school teachers, your friends that come over to your parties as people who are big enough to be able to go out and buy organic food. You know, when you have a house party, invite them over, say, bring organic food. It's an organic potluck. And they may say, well, what the heck do I do? Say, buy organic juice, right? Start a trend in your neighborhood and be the one to stand for their greatness. So that's why you. So here's, I'm gonna have some calls to action. Please be the one to call your senators. Here's the phone numbers. I ask you to please put them in your phone, and that number will connect you with your senators automatically. All you have to do is tell them your zip code. So you don't have to know who your senator is to do this. So it's 202-224-3121, and you call them and you tell them to say no on the DARK Act. This is 1599, which means voluntary GMO labeling, labeling GMOs as natural. No safety testing will ever be able to be done by the FDA. They will eliminate state rights, Vermont and Maine and Connecticut, that have passed GMO labeling. They will not be able to have GMO labeling. And the Native Americans that want GMO-free zones and there's like 25 other counties that have passed GMO-free zones, totally wiped out. This is corporate control right here and must be stopped. And this is going up into the Senate to be voted on. October 21st is the first day that it's going to be in the Ag Committee. So we need everybody to call just before and on October 21st. And please say yes on 511. That's Senate Bill 511 for mandatory GMO labeling. And next we ask you to call the EPA to demand that they revoke the license of glyphosate. And that number is 703-308-8187. Again, 703-308-8187. And that's Neil Anderson, and he's the director of the Pesticide Review Board. Everybody? What's that?
It's very hard to see to write.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll put it back up at the end. Or you can ask me. I've got the numbers memorized. Okay, so you can also, what's that? We can also host an event on Moms Across America and get a code for free materials for your neighborhood. For $20, you can get a box worth about $125 of about 1,000 flyers that we're very grateful to our sponsors to be able to provide the money for us to print out. And these are family-friendly, beautiful, not scary flyers that are packed with information that are really fun to pass out. So we want to say thank you to our sponsors for that. Now, our food system may be corrupt, but our people are not. They are creative, courageous, and making a huge contribution to our society. And I think you saw an example of that tonight with all the speakers that spoke before me. We can make a difference in our communities, and we can create health and freedom. And I want to say thank you so much for being a part of this evening. I hope we can count on you for your partnership. You can count on Moms Across America for our partnership. We will not stop. We will not give up because the love for our children will never end. Thank you so much. Monsanto and the people who make the seeds tell them that it will resist pests and weeds. They will, because you can spray these chemicals around them and it will kill all of the weeds around the crop, but it won't kill the crop. Or you don't have to spray chemicals because the chemical is already in the crop and it will just kill any bug that eats it. And you won't have to hire lots of laborers to pull weeds, and it will be a greater yield. You'll have increased yield and maybe even stronger or whatever. They say all kinds of things. Now, the problem is that may have been so for the first 2 or 3 years of GMOs. But after a short period of time, They started to see weed resistance. There's over 100 now weeds that are resistant. They won't die from glyphosate. And there are corn rootworms that won't die when they eat the Bt toxin corn. So Mother Nature's getting stronger, and these farmers are seeing a real problem. And this may be why there are farmers now. John Kemp, one of the farmers I mentioned, said he had a conference of 150 farmers, I think 2 years ago, and he asked them, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, let me just say a couple years ago, and he asked them how many farmers in here use Roundup. Every single one of them raised their hand. And then he went back this year and asked them, and only 8 of them raised their hand. So more and more farmers are moving away from this, and this is why I believe Monsanto's stock has dropped. It's dropped 30% in this past year. So people are moving away from it. Yes, Bob?
Yeah, I was saying when I raised my hand, is you might give the advice, say from Don Huber or Richard Ulrey, but everyone in here should be on a strong mineral supplement such as Rich Ulrey or Jerry Shepley provide.
But, Merlin, would you mind if I read the refounding statement? No. Okay, awesome. I happen to bring it. So this is what we came up with about refounding a bold America. We, the mothers, fathers, and elders, declare that all men, women, and children are created equal, that endowed by our Creator, we are born with certain unalienable rights of life, health, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, we are creating a just government amongst men and women with the consent of the governed, who first put the safety, education, and well-being of our future, the children, and our environment first. These rights shall not be compromised by corporations, governments, or individuals regardless of wealth or influence, and said rights shall be protected in the actions of every individual, organization, religion, corporation, or government. We declare a new focus of creation for our society, which is a clean, healthy, toxin-free, sustainable, and prosperous planet which grows in harmony with nature, giving our children and all life the best possible future. We declare as a human race that our goal is no longer to survive through short-term power struggles, war, and restriction of resources, but to thrive with generous international co-creation and the long-term healthy future as the goal. Our success shall be reflected in the future we provide for our children. Just to start.